Welcome to Life Stories Network, where we share the stories that shake hearts, open eyes, and remind us how unpredictable life can be. Today I'm about to tell you something deeply personal, something that began when I was just a scared teenager and followed me for decades. It's about abandonment, resilience, and the irony of life when the very people who cast you out one day come knocking at your door. I was 17 when my world shattered. At that age, I wasn't thinking about fame, money, or success. I was just a girl in love, making mistakes, trying to figure out who I was. And then I got pregnant. When I told my parents, I thought they would be angry, sure, but deep down, I believed they would support me, guide me, and help me through what was the scariest news of my life. Instead, they did the unthinkable. They disowned me. It wasn't just words thrown out in anger. They meant it. My father packed my bags and left them at the doorstep. My mother couldn't even look me in the eye. I begged them, tears streaming down my face, but they told me that if I was old enough to make a baby, I was old enough to live without their help. That sentence cut through me like glass. I walked out of the house I grew up in, carrying not just my belongings, but also the weight of rejection heavier than anything I'd ever felt. I had no money, no home, no real plan. My boyfriend at the time, the father of my child, wasn't ready to step up either. He vanished the moment responsibility entered the picture. So, it was me. Just me and the life growing inside me. At 17, the nights felt endless, filled with fear and hunger. I worked odd jobs, cleaning houses, waiting tables, anything that would put food on the table. There were days when I went without meals just so I could save for the doctor's visits. When my son was born, I remember holding him in my arms and whispering, "It's you and me, kid." Against the world. That became my promise. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. I didn't need anyone to tell me I could make it, because that tiny boy with big brown eyes gave me purpose. Every sleepless night, every struggle, every tear, it all became fuel to push forward. The years rolled on, and raising him was no fairy tale. There were school fees I couldn't afford, birthdays where I could only buy him a cupcake instead of a cake, and winters when we bundled up in layers because heating cost too much. But through it all he grew. And oh, did he grow! He had a gift. From a young age, I noticed his voice. It wasn't just singing. It was magic. Teachers noticed too. Soon he was entering local competitions and his name started to spread. My son, the boy I once rocked to sleep in a broken-down apartment, was standing on stages, winning hearts. By the time he was in his 20s, his career exploded. Fame came knocking, not softly, but like a thunderstorm. Record deals, tours, interviews, fans screaming his name. He became a household name, admired not just for his voice, but for his humility and the way he always said, "My mom is my hero." He never forgot the nights I stayed up late sewing his costumes, or the times I worked double shifts so he could take music lessons. Every award he held up, he credited to me. Life finally felt like it was paying me back for all those years of struggle. But then something happened that I never thought I'd see. My parents, the same ones who had shut the door on me at 17, came back. Not with apologies, not with regret. They came back because now they wanted a piece of my son's fame. The first time I saw them again after almost 3 decades, it was surreal. I was backstage at one of my son's concerts. Security was tight, fans were screaming, and then I heard someone call my name. I turned, and there they were. My parents, older, grayer, but unmistakably them. For a second, I froze. Part of me was that 17-year-old girl again, terrified and broken. My mother's eyes welled up as if years of silence had never happened. My father cleared his throat and said, "We've missed you. We want to see our grandson." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Missed me? For 29 years, they had no idea if I was dead or alive. No phone calls. No letters. Nothing. And suddenly, now that my son was famous, they wanted in. I looked at them and asked the one question that had burned inside me all those years. Where were you when I needed you most? They avoided my eyes. My father muttered something about being young and strict, and my mother whispered about regret. But their timing wasn't lost on me. They didn't come when I was scrubbing floors to buy baby formula. They didn't come when I collapsed from exhaustion trying to balance 3 jobs. They came now when TV cameras followed my son, when his face was on billboards, when access to him meant access to luxury. Still, a part of me softened. I'm not made of stone. These were the people who raised me, and no matter how much hurt I carried, there was still that little girl inside me craving their love. I let them meet my son. I thought maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of healing, but I was wrong. It wasn't about healing for them. It was about opportunity. They began showing up at every event, positioning themselves in front of photographers, introducing themselves as the proud grandparents. They gave interviews without our permission, painting a picture of themselves as supportive, loving family members who had always been there. The lies burned me up inside. I wanted to scream the truth from the rooftops, but my son, always the peacemaker, begged me to stay calm. Things came to a head one night at an award show. My son was nominated for Artist of the Year. It was a huge moment. As he walked up to the stage to receive his award, the cameras panned to the audience, and there were my parents, smiling and clapping like they had earned the right to be there. That image went viral, with headlines calling them the supportive grandparents of America's golden boy. My blood boiled. I couldn't hold it in anymore. After the event, I confronted them. You abandoned me when I was a child having a child. You left me to suffer. You don't get to suddenly wear the badge of family now that it's convenient. My father raised his voice, accusing me of poisoning my son against them. My mother sobbed, saying fame changes people. I looked them dead in the eyes and said, no, fame doesn't change people. It reveals them. And you've revealed exactly who you are. That was the night I decided boundaries were necessary. I told security to never let them near my son without my approval. I blocked their numbers. It broke me, but I had to protect not just myself, but also the boy I raised, the man who had become the star he was. Months went by and my parents didn't back down. They went to the press, spinning stories about how I had turned my son against them. They painted themselves as victims, elderly parents desperate to reconnect with their only grandson. Headlines screamed, "Grandparents shut out a famous singer's life." The public, not knowing the truth, began to judge me. I received hate mail, accusations of being heartless, greedy, even manipulative. It crushed me because no one knew the sacrifices I had made. No one knew how many nights I went without eating so my son could have dinner. No one knew the depth of pain from being abandoned at 17. To the outside world, it looked like I was selfish. But my son knew, and that's all that mattered. He stood by me through it all. In interviews, he gently set the record straight. He said, "My mom is the only parent I've ever had. She raised me, she sacrificed everything, and she deserves all the credit. Anyone who wasn't there when we had nothing doesn't deserve to be here now." His words silenced many critics, but of course my parents kept pushing. Then came the final breaking point. They tried to sue for grandparent visitation rights, hoping the court would force my son to let them into his life. It was humiliating and infuriating, but the judge dismissed it, noting that my son was an adult, free to make his own choices. When the ruling came down, my parents glared at me as if I had stolen something from them. But in reality, they had stolen decades from me, decades of love, guidance, and support that should have been there. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder how different things might have been if they had chosen love instead of pride, if they had chosen family instead of appearances. But I also know this: their rejection shaped me. It made me strong, resilient, and fiercely protective of the son who became my world. Without that pain, maybe I wouldn't have had the fire to fight so hard for him. Today, when I sit in the audience watching my son sing to thousands, I don't think about the parents who left me. I think about the nights I rocked him to sleep. I think about the mornings I walked him to school holding his tiny hand. I think about the moments no camera will ever capture, the quiet sacrifices that built the man he is today. My parents may never understand the damage they caused, but I've learned that closure doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it comes from within. And my closure is knowing I raised a man who values loyalty, love, and truth above all else. That's worth more than any staged photograph, any fake headline, or any desperate attempt by people who only showed up when it was convenient. So, to anyone listening, remember this: family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when it matters, who stays when the world turns its back, and who stands beside you even when there's nothing to gain. That's the real meaning of love. And that's the lesson I had to learn the hardest way.